Your life is lived every day, and what happens between Sundays matters. Join Nate and Kate as they take oftentimes big ideas and make them practical for everyday life. This is the Between Sundays podcast with Nate and Kate Thompson.
All right, we are Nate and Kate Thompson, and we have a new podcast we're starting called Between Sundays with Nate and Kate, because what happens between Sundays matters.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm Nate. So we want to get into this. Let's just dig into the idea of Between Sundays.
So we know that as Christians, we do put a lot of stock in what happens at church on Sunday mornings. We go and we worship, we pray, we love being with other believers, but the majority of our life is lived outside of church. Mm-hmm. So the idea of Between Sundays actually started when Nate had an idea to do I guess you'd call it a lecture series?
I would call it a lecture series. And I got that name from one of the docs I work with. He called it that, so I loved it. Yeah, I had this thought of like sharing more ideas outside of just my normal circles. And then we were doing, you and Cheryl, my sister, you guys were doing like a girls' Bible study, which we got in on, which then caused me to actually have to do something. And you said, why don't you write down the stuff, even if you don't have somewhere to do it, write these ideas down and we'll even bare minimum share it with family. So I did that. And then I ended up booking at the coffee house downtown, Exquisite Corpse, 6 Fridays in a row. I talked about these 6 topics from when I was a kid that my parents did, like living out faith between Sundays. When I was growing up, they had people live with us. We took communion often as a family at home. They did Bible studies with their friends when we were kids and went to houses and hung out with their friends doing Bible studies. My mom and dad organized their own mission trip to Honduras, just did that.
Crazy.
And then just the idea of just being just back in the Bible, like in the Word. So those were like the 6 ideas. And
you called that 6 Days of Jesus.
Yeah.
6 Days of Jesus turned into Between Sundays, which is a book that we wrote.
Yep.
But the name 6 Days of Jesus didn't stick.
No, sounded too hardcore. But yeah, so that's where that idea spawned from. And then it was just kind of really highlighted, I think, individually for us, like, what are we up to during the week? And I remember even in the book, I wrote one of the first things was, will our son have as good of stories as I had? Right. And that was challenging to wonder because some of the weird stuff, like people living with us and just all of those like memories from being a kid, and I just thought, gosh, I want Bear to have real stories.
It was a reality check. Yeah. When we started remembering and reminiscing all the things that your parents did, it was like, whoa, how are we going to like make sure that legacy goes to the next generation too? Because their life was so much more than church. Like they went to a church that I guess you could say they believed in the Bible, but they didn't always practice everything it said during the week. And then your mom and dad like picked up their Bible and read all of these things that are supposed to be a part of the Christian life that they wanted to start doing.
Yeah, and just went for it. Mm-hmm. So what does this mean to us then?
So from the 6 Days of Jesus lecture series came the book Between Sundays, and we started writing that out together, and we put out the book last December. But there's so much more that can be expanded on besides just the 6 topics in the book. So this podcast gives us the opportunity to talk about way more things that are a part of the life of a believer. And I think the majority of our life is lived outside of 2 hours on Sunday. Yeah. So we need to look into that. Right. So our hope is to encourage people in this podcast to be present and intentional with their faith every single day. Mm-hmm. That's in our going to work and our spending time with families, shopping, making food, our everyday, ordinary lives as Christians. Yeah. So before we get into releasing these episodes, we have put together some questions to ask each other just so you can get to know us a little bit more. Before we ask those questions, though, do you want to talk about some of the things we might go over in the podcast, like just some of the topics that we've... Okay, so here's an example. We worship at church every Sunday. Yeah. But how do we bring that into our home during the week? Mm-hmm. Do we put on worship music? Do we actually try to break out a guitar and sing with our family every night? How do we worship during the week? We talk about things at church, like being patient, and I feel like that's a really good example. Like when we're at church, we want to be so patient with our kids. Oh, we want to look good. Oh, you come in, you just practically
smacked your kid in the head in the car and you come in smiling. So everybody knows that's real.
Right. So we want to talk about then between Sundays, how does that look? Being patient with your family, being loving, being kind. So it's the idea of bringing those things that we do regularly on Sundays as Christians, and how do they look in our everyday life?
Prayer, reading the Bible, parenting, work, friendships, marriage, community. We got all sorts of stuff.
The spectrum is very broad right now, but
it's life. That's our scope of this podcast is life. So let's try that out.
Thanks for being here with Between Sundays. Don't forget to rate the podcast and share your feedback here or online at myhopefm.net.
Okay, so you don't know what questions I'm going to ask you.
No.
I don't know what questions you're going to ask me.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Would you rather give bad advice to somebody or get bad advice from somebody?
I would rather get bad advice from somebody.
Why?
Well, I don't like being wrong.
I never noticed. That's new to me. Keep going. Let's talk about that.
And I feel like I have a good filter. Like I will filter out your bad advice. I feel like whether I take advice that's on me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can give me advice, but whether I apply it to my life, that's my decision.
All right.
Okay, so I've got some questions for you.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm ready.
How old are you and how old do you feel?
I am 41 physically, mentally late 20s max.
Right.
I feel friggin' awesome still.
Don't you think at about 30 when people are like, how old are you? And then you say your age, you're like, wait, that can't be right.
I have a problem at work. I have coworkers now who are like 24. I'm a nurse. I work in the cardiovascular lab at McLaren. Some of my coworkers are half my age almost. And I talked about Y2K one day. They weren't barely born. And I was like, I wasn't sure if my Firebird was going to start that night. And that was and they were like, I don't know what that is.
They didn't know Y2K?
No, it was adorable.
Oh, gosh.
So yeah, I feel cool. I feel great still. Losing some hair. I'm okay with that. I'm working through some things. Yeah. But I feel younger than I actually am.
Life.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you rather wing it or be prepared?
I always shoot from the hip. You are my prepared. I think we both know that. I think people are actively feeling that out in this past 10 minutes, that you're the one who's prepared here. I like to have a plan, at least an outline.
Okay.
General bones, I'll flesh it out as we go.
That's fair enough.
Just like that answer. All right. You married me when you were 19 years old. Mm-hmm. If our son Bear says he's getting married at 19, what would you tell him?
I would tell him that's risky.
That's a gamble, kid.
I just think that's so young. When I look back at getting married at 19, I think, what was I thinking? Like,
it had to be me. That's what you were thinking.
It's just so young. It's not that it's not great. We've been married now for 18 years. And
wait, it's not great. Wait, you want to talk about that?
Sorry.
You said it's not great.
I did?
Well, I don't know what we can maybe reflect on the tape on that one.
It's not that it's not great.
But
Okay. It is great. It was great for us.
Okay. For us, it's great.
For us, it was a good decision. But it's been great. It's been a great 18 years. But I feel like, even especially now, I feel like it's just so different than when we got married. That to get married at 19, there's just still so much life to live. But I remember talking to you, maybe it was in marriage counseling or something, but they said, just if you're getting married young, like, make sure you're willing to change together, because when you get married at 19, you will change, like, throughout your life. Mm-hmm. Your personalities, your goals, like, you're going to change. So you have to kind of decide that no matter what happens, we're going to change together.
Agreed.
What's the best gift you've ever received?
You.
That is a great answer.
Thank you.
That's a great answer.
Thank you. Thank you, John and Lori, or Kate. It's my father and mother-in-law.
I guess they do kind of give you away at a wedding.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
If you could punch someone in the face without getting in trouble, would you do it?
No.
I do it every day almost in my life.
Yeah, I think you asked me that question so you could answer it.
Go ahead. No, but okay, let me redefine the question. If you could punch somebody in the face and they didn't actually get hurt, like if it was like a video game style beating, would you do it?
No, I would look crazy trying to punch somebody. Like, I don't even know how to punch.
We'll go over that.
Let me ask you then, what motivates you?
Challenges motivate me. Like, I think something that I haven't done before, even though I might not even want to actually do it, I like to think I can do it.
Like if
That's a
someone
problem
says
for
you
me.
can't do this, just makes you want to do it more.
No, because sometimes I'm like, hey, I don't want to do it. It's if it's something I want to do that I'm not sure that I can do. Challenges. I'm going to leave it simple.
Okay. This one you might have to think about for a second.
Okay.
This is a good question. What makes you qualified to talk about being a Christian every day of the week between Sundays?
Can you ask that question again? Let me actually listen to it.
Yes. What makes you qualified to talk about being a Christian every day of the week? Like, as in, how are you able to do a podcast called Between Sundays?
Oh, man. Okay. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say because my hope is actually in the Lord. It really is. When I sit and think about it, that I believe the concept that not only was Jesus a real person, I believe the idea that he was really God. And then I feel like over the past few years of my life, I have been trying to put his stuff into practice. Like I'm not just like the idea of hearing it and then not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
So I think I have some history with the Lord that's real that I would like to share about. And I screw it up often, but I feel like more often he helps me fix it.
Totally agree.
So I think I have some stuff to pull from.
Right.
That's real. It's like got some grit,
Mm-hmm.
got some dirt under my fingernails with the Lord.
That's good. Okay. One last question for you. Do you like raisins?
Nature's candy, dude.
Well, how would you feel about having a date with me? Do you get it? A date?
Yeah, I'm in.
Okay.
Jeez.
I was trying to throw you off.
Wow.
Did I?
You did. All right, man. Let's put a bow on this.
Okay.
Thanks for listening in and checking us out today. We hope that you'll be listening to Between Sundays and that you're encouraged and that you're going to be present and intentional with your faith every single day. Because what happens between Sundays matters.
Thank you for listening to the Between Sundays podcast. If you have questions or want to connect further, visit the podcast page at myhopefm.net. And remember, your life is lived every day, and what happens between Sundays matters.